Hello, and welcome to Adventures with Scars. I'm your host, Lauren Huffmaster. Adventures with Scars is a discussion on the emotional side effects of cancer. And we all know that when someone's diagnosed, they're presented with treatments and a treatment plan. And along with that comes a huge binder with all the physical side effects someone might experience. But no one talks about the emotional side effects of cancer. How does cancer impact the rest of our story, the rest of our life? On this podcast, we want to define that impact. We are providing stories and words to define the true impact of cancer. Our hope is by talking about these side effects, these emotional side effects, we can minimize them, making them a typical experience of cancer. So we're going to talk about, so today, let's talk to patients, survivors, co-survivors, and anyone who might be impacted by cancer. Actually, I said that wrong. So sorry. I don't usually mess up, but I haven't done this in a minute. Okay.
No worries.
This podcast talks with patients, survivors, and co-survivors in hopes that these discussions will help all of us better understand and heal from this emotional experience from cancer. Today, I'm talking with Kandy Salby. She's been living with cancer for 3.5 years. And Kandy, we're so thankful you're here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Lauren. And I wanted to take a moment to just say thank you for your impact, for your foundation, and for this podcast. I've listened to every single episode and I find them very validating, inspiring, and they give me hope. I also really appreciate the opportunity to share my story, and I hope that maybe something I say will help somebody else.
Well, I know it will. I know you, and I know this is going to be very encouraging to many people. So let's just start to hear your story. Tell us a little bit about your cancer journey.
Okay, I was having digestive issues for about 6 months during the spring and summer of 2020. Eventually, I saw a GI specialist via Zoom because it was during COVID. She recommended a colonoscopy, and that colonoscopy saved my life. I was diagnosed at age 49 with colon cancer, and that was during the colonoscopy. They couldn't actually complete the colonoscopy because they discovered a 4-inch growth within that first 10 inches of the colon. So lots of blood work, lots of tests, lots of scans came next. I also did a lot of reading during this time, and I attribute the book Love, Medicine, and Miracles by Dr. Bernie Segal to helping me be prepared for anything they had to say. After a CT scan and a PET scan, I learned I had 2 small pea-sized nodules in my left lung, which now made me stage 4 because the colon cancer had traveled to a distant organ. I was not considered a candidate for surgery. They were going to do a lot of very harsh chemo, and the goal was to control the growth of the cancer. It was not considered a curative situation. So I lined up a substitute teacher and I went on medical leave and said goodbye to my classes of seniors on Zoom on October 20th, 2020. And at that time, I did not know that would be my very last day teaching. I didn't know what to expect at all. It was really scary. I was determined to make healing my full-time job. I still felt like there must have been some mistake. One of the best decisions I made at this time was to switch doctors. I needed the glass half full guy. I found him by asking the nurses, who's the glass half full guy around here? And I found him. I also had my niece as my personal assistant / note taker, and my husband. Either one of them would be on speakerphone or FaceTime with me, sometimes both of them. And that was really helpful because sometimes we were all taking notes and we all heard something different, something that somebody else didn't hear. And it was really helpful to compare our responses. So I did 11 rounds of chemo from November 2020 to May 2021. I requested a reduction in dosage 4 times, which makes me wonder what dose we started at. I also delayed treatment 4 times due to just feeling too sick or too weak to continue. And I also chose not to do round 12 because I wanted to enjoy my nephew's wedding. And I had the courage to ask for these things because I was working with a naturopathic doctor who really encouraged me to advocate for myself and be an active participant in the whole healing process and all of the treatment. So fortunately, in January 2021, the tumor and the small nodules had shrunken in half. And since no new nodules had popped up, I became a candidate for surgery. So that was really great news. I had surgery on my left lung in July of 2021. Both nodules were removed laparoscopically. The upper one was cancer, the lower one was just scar tissue. I recovered really quickly from that surgery and felt pretty good after just a couple weeks. And then I had 5 doses of radiation to my lower back targeted to the colon area where the tumor was in August 2021. And then major abdominal surgery in October 2021 to remove 7 inches of my colon where the tumor had been and was still there, but shrunk into about 1.5 inches at that point. They also removed 26 lymph nodes. One of them had cancer in it. They also removed my ovaries and my fallopian tubes as a preventative measure because colon cancer tends to recur in those places. They also gave me a temporary ileostomy bag to allow the colon to heal. And that was a whole new world of learning how to change an ostomy bag, drain an ostomy bag, take care of an ostomy bag. I only had that that was only on me for 5 months. However, I ended up in the ER 6 days post this surgery due to a hematoma, which is a blood clot. It was on the inside of my lower pelvis tailbone area as a complication of the surgery. And I had to have a blood transfusion and spent 5 days in the ICU dealing with that. The hematoma had caused so much pain, I ended up having a drain inserted through my left buttocks into my pelvic region to sort of try to pull that blood out, relieve the pressure. And the drain did its job, but it was extremely painful. And it was a huge relief to get that drain removed after a couple weeks. Funny enough, the day I got my drain removed, I got to visit my husband in the hospital on the same floor because he had had an emergency appendectomy. And we made a lot of jokes about him wanting attention and how we just really like having dates at the hospital. And then, so 5 months after my major surgery, this is now March 2022, I had the reversal surgery, which is another major surgery to remove the ostomy bag, put everything back in, and let my colon go back to work. My digestive system is still figuring things out almost 2 years later, still trying to figure out what works and what doesn't diet-wise. I officially retired from teaching in May 2022. Talk about a change of plans and a broken identity. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. I definitely didn't know then, who am I if I'm not a teacher? Because I taught for 28 years and I loved it. And I didn't stop because I didn't love it. I stopped because I had to take care of me. So I had no evidence of disease until my CT scan in December 2022, and it was confirmed with a PET scan in January 2023 that there were 2 more nodules in my left lung. So I had another lung surgery in March 2023 to remove my entire upper left lung lobe and a small nodule in my lower left lobe. Both nodules were confirmed cancer. There was no evidence of disease until a CT scan in August 2023 showed there was a nodule in my upper right lung lobe. And then during a PET scan 4 weeks later, that was gone. I had read a book called Getting Well Again, which inspired me to try visualization. So during that 4 weeks when I was waiting between CT scan and PET scan, I was visualizing 3 times a day for 5 minutes each. I visualized this nodule in my right lung dissolving like champagne bubbles. And then I visualized a clear lung scan. I even Googled what does a clear lung scan look like so I could visualize it. And I would visualize all my white blood cells working to remove abnormal cells over and over 3 times a day for the whole 4 weeks between the scans. And then when I got the PET scan, there was nothing there. The nodule was gone. I don't know if the visualizing did it, but I think it helped. I know it didn't hurt. I was finally able to complete a complete colonoscopy in November 2023. They found 6 polyps and removed them. None of them were cancerous. I'm so glad I was able to get that done finally and get those polyps removed, because if they don't get removed, they do turn into cancer. So more recently, my CT scan in December 2023 was stable, no evidence of disease. I can now go every 4 months for CT scans instead of every 3 months, which is great news because we're exposed to a lot of radiation every single time we get a scan, and it's better to not have them so often. I'm continuing to do blood work every 3 months, along with working with my naturopathic doctor. I feel good. I'm healthy. I've been working out. I've been eating right. Still trying to figure out the best diet for me, but that's where I am today.
Thank you so much for telling us your story. It's, to me, when I hear this, it's like the very beginning you think, oh, this will get through this quickly, and then things just happen and things happen, and it always seems to get stretched out further than you think. And but I'm so excited for you. No evidence of disease. There's nothing more beautiful. There's nothing more relieving. There's nothing bigger that you could possibly celebrate than those three words when you've got a stage 4 diagnosis.
Thank you. I agree. I just can't be complacent about it. So while I am happy and grateful, I think there's always one active brain cell that says, don't forget, take care of yourself.
Which is always a good rule of thumb. Like we should always be taking care of ourselves. Cancer gives us a bigger motivation, perhaps, to remember that and to make good choices. But the story of all of us is that we need more rest. We need more mental rest and mental health tools, and any of us could use that. But especially when you're with cancer, I always say that with stage 4, you're just never quite comfortable again. You don't ever have the opportunity to truly just relax. Because like you said, there's always this few parts of your brain that's saying, should we be on alert today? Should we be scared today? Because you just can't quite ever get comfortable with this idea.
Absolutely. I agree.
In your story, I heard a lot of balance of medical life and personal life. How was that balance for you? How did you find that balance?
It was a tough adjustment. I think one of the surprises of this whole journey was that it was actually difficult mentally, physically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually difficult to accept help. I had to make this huge emotional, physical change where I let other people take care of me. My sisters came to my house, spent the night, and helped take care of me. Plus, I needed help getting kids to and from school and practice or whatever they were doing. My husband's amazing and he cooks. So at first, I said no to a meal train that the teachers had organized. And one of the teachers convinced me, no, just try it maybe one day a week. And that really ended up decreasing our stress. So I, it was just a huge shift being open to accept and receive. And so I made that a daily mantra. I am open to accept and receive all help, all love, all support, all healing. And it just surprised me how hard that was. I had to keep not feeling guilty or bad, or I still have a list of people I want to send thank you notes to. It was overwhelming. It was a tsunami, a flood of gift baskets and flowers and candles and tea and blankets and just amazing. So much love and support. I feel so very blessed and grateful for all of that. And yet there's this, you want to reciprocate. You're used to being able to give and reciprocate. When someone gives you something nice, you want to give them something nice back, or at least send a thank you card. And I was just too sick and weak to do all those things that I wanted to do. But learning to accept and receive all of those offers of help was really, really, I think it brought me a lot closer to every member of my family. And, I had Uber rides to the hospital from my brother and my sister-in-law. Sometimes my nephew was with us, and neighbors who would, give my son a ride to school. And just it gave people an opportunity to show me that they love me through action. And I am still working on this, but trying to accept that as an idea that if you let people show you they love you, that's okay. It's good for them. It's a gift to them that you let them be nice to you, help you, make you a meal, give you a ride, help your kids.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you had to almost redefine what love felt like for you. Maybe in the past it was like you give and you receive and you give and you receive, and that back and forth is the feeling of love. But now you had to experience a whole different version where you had no ability to give, but you were still loved. You could still receive, and what you maybe gave back was just yourself, right? Not any action, but just your presence.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, one of the cool things I had asked for at the very beginning, I had one of my teacher friends make me stickers to hang up all over the house that had positive words so that there was nowhere I could look and not see something positive. So there were all these positive words like rest and repair, mind over matter, you're not a statistic, faith, love, healing, accept and receive. They were everywhere, every room of my house, including the bathroom, so that I didn't have the luxury of a negative thought. I had to, I mean, and we all have them. They're scary. Cancer's scary. I have often described it as the Grim Reaper is sitting on my shoulder and he's poking me. Every once in a while I can toss him off. But when you consciously try to battle back those scary thoughts and say things like, I'm grateful for my healing, I'm open to accept and receive all healing, I think it's really helpful. So I think there is a balance between that medical world and then the whole emotional world and the personal relationships, and really letting people help you and being okay.
Absolutely. I found this with adventure therapy. I can provide a gift. I can hand someone, show up on their doorstep and say, I want to give you a retreat, or I want to give you a gift. And people have a terrible time receiving. And what I've learned is that people are probably always present in giving you gifts, but receiving that gift, it makes you question something inside. People have some kind of place in their life where if you receive, then you're obligated, or you're, and they a lot of people say, I don't deserve it, or, I'm not sick enough, or, there's tons of excuses that come flooding out, like they're all waiting to just deny the gift. And there's nothing worse from a giver's perspective than watching that person move forward in life through something terribly difficult, knowing that my gift could have brought them something better. Like, even if just for a moment or an hour or a day, they could have had a better day if they had received my gift, but they just weren't willing or able. And so they say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I always think about this kind of thing, like, I can offer a gift, but it has to be received. It's more often denied than received, and it's become a shocking sort of experience for me to see that. But then for my own life, if people start bringing me things or offering me help, it's hard for me to say yes. So it's a strange experience that we have so many sort of walls against maybe being vulnerable or being cared for, or it's this maybe American independence where we have to be strong, quote unquote, strong and capable. And anything less than that is explaining like that we're weak, and the opposite. I think that we have a bad definition of strong, and strength. I think that strength really comes in community and comes in relationship. And the whole point is that one of us can become weak or rest, even not even weak, just choose to rest, and the others can rise up and care for us. And that balance is what keeps us moving, but this idea of what strength looks like keeps us from living in that balance. And so I have the same experience as you. It's been very difficult. The first round of chemo, I definitely did not receive help like I could have. And then the second round, I, against my will, maybe said, please, I'm open to receive, just like you said, I'm open to receive. And I have received so many wonderful moments with people and gifts and encouragement. And so I think Kandy and I would both recommend anyone out there who is in a hard time, be open to receive. I love Kandy's words here. Be open to receive. The blessing is not just for you, it's for others to be present in your life and be a part of your life.
I agree. Absolutely. Say yes to everything. And if you don't know what you need, try and think through your days, the kinds of things that you do. Maybe someone can do laundry for you. Someone can take the kids to school or pick them up. Even if you think you might feel good enough to do it, let someone else do it. And the meal trains are great.
Yeah, they are. Like you said, even one day a week, it just somehow releases the tension of the week. And, you have one day sort of off, not to think about and plan and all of that. So yeah, I agree. Find something, even if it feels small, it's an invitation for someone else to be a part of your life. And that is the beginning. That's a great beginning into building any relationship. So So thank you for that. And then balancing life. And I love the story of your husband in a hospital at the same time as you. I'm sure that didn't feel fun at the time. Your children were probably a little bit upset, but it is a funny story afterwards.
Yes, he ended up having an emergency appendectomy the day after Christmas. And I remember because of COVID, I had to wait in the car while he went into the ER. And I'm waiting with my drain that's going through my left buttocks into my pelvis is freezing, just waiting in the car, waiting, waiting, waiting. And finally, they let me in, and he was just being wheeled into surgery. But we do laugh about it a lot. And we've had many hospital dates.
Yeah. And the things we do for family, right? Both of us down, both of you down at the same time, and both of you needing support at the same time. And but you just sit there and you're just present for each other. That's pretty amazing. Um, but I'm sure your children did not think that that was an amazing moment. You talked about broken identity, this idea that you'd always enjoyed being a teacher, you were a teacher, then one moment you just had to stop and you didn't realize that that would be the last time you'd be able to teach. So talk a little more, tell us about your this idea of broken identity.
I think I really put a lot of my identity into teaching. I started teaching when I was 22, and I taught English 9th through 12th graders, and then helped create a Future Teachers Academy. So, not just being a teacher, but recruiting and supporting and mentoring future teachers. And I was also a beginning teacher mentor as well, and making connections with colleges so that our high school students who are in the program, which still continues today, they receive college credit from our local community college as well as Sonoma State University. So it was just, I really found my calling. I really love teaching. It was fun for me. People always thought, oh, you're crazy. High school kids, don't they have attitude? And I would say none more than I do. So that's fine. And plus, if they know you love them, they don't really give you that attitude. I think some of it's love, some of it's backbone, being confident in what you're doing and not wasting anybody's time. I always started school saying, hey, we're already behind because I only see you every other day on our AB block schedule. So we don't have time to waste. Let's go. And I think as an English teacher, we get to talk about life lessons as well as the novels or the writing skills that we are discussing or learning about. So, especially with seniors, we can get very deep in our topics, and is very rewarding for me to teach them through Socratic seminars, circle the class and have discussions and teach them that asking good questions was even more important than having the right answer. And that in a class of 39 people, it's okay if no one agrees with each other, but we will be respectful of each other. And so I really enjoyed seeing people open their minds to opposite opinions. It certainly got heated sometimes. There were tears sometimes. People would get very upset, but we learned how to respectfully disagree, which I feel is a huge missing component in our society today. And so I do miss that. And I have been back a couple times to help with, we do a mock job fair. And I went and helped prepare the students for that. And I helped interview them last year and this year. So I got a little taste of working with the students again. But it is a big part of who I am. I can't help it. Even, in the description of my journey, I talk about books, right? It's just automatic. And that's why I'm also really grateful for this opportunity, because I want to share with other people. It is my natural inclination is this: if I learn something that worked for me, I want to teach others to maybe try it. Maybe it will help you as well.
So how have you, what did it feel like at the beginning or maybe even now when that piece of your life was gone and you didn't really have anything to replace it? How did that feel at the beginning?
I felt really lost, but I didn't really have time to dwell, because when you're in pain and you're nauseous, there's really not much time to dwell on that. Once I started feeling better, then I kind of, my head came out of the clouds and I'm looking around And I also realized my community was gone. The community at the high school where I taught for 28 years, not the whole community. I have a few select friends who still check on me. We still go, to lunch or dinners or movies or whatever. But I had friends at work that were just my friends at work. And I know people ask about me through other people, but very few people text me directly or call me directly. And so there are a handful of people, and I know that some of them are sort of like the Kandy newsflash updater for the community. But it was a very big adjustment from being on campus and saying hello to 150 people a day, or even just a smile, is a emotional and physical experience. And now it's just me and my family and occasional friends that I get together with, and pets, which I also love. However, that felt, and it still feels, a little strange. Some of the people that I really thought were my very, very close friends, I really haven't heard from like I thought I would. And it does feel different when you're used to talking all day and interacting and conversing with people. And I think eventually, once I felt better, which was about a year ago, I started going to two different cancer support groups, the one through Adventure Therapy and one called Kaleidoscope that's based out here, um, near where I live. And that helped substitute that community loss, and being able to talk to people and share ideas with people and be in touch with people and have events and things to do with people. So kind of creating a different community.
It is always interesting to me how like broken identity really leads to isolation. They're all connected because we're a whole person. We're not in little categories and boxes. But yeah, this sense of being disconnected from your job and part of your identity leads to a bit of disconnection from community and places you into a state of isolation. And it's so sudden, it was like one day you're teaching and then the next day you're not, and you didn't know what the future was hold, so you couldn't get a completion there. You couldn't say your goodbyes or have a goodbye party or something you might get if you retired. Here it's just today is normal, tomorrow is not, and you don't know what the next day will bring. And so that just leaves a sense of incompletion.
True. And I also knew people. I have several teacher friends who have had cancer and continued to work. They were able to do chemo one day and come back to work the next day or a couple days later. I am grateful I did not have to do that, but I I am, my hats off to them. I'm in awe of anyone who can do that, because chemo just flattened me. But maybe it was the dosage. Maybe every chemo is different, every person's different, every cancer is different. I just I couldn't, I don't know. Maybe I could if I had to, but I'm grateful that I didn't have to. I was really able to focus on just healing. And yes, it was a big difference from seeing, even on Zoom, 100 kids a day and then not seeing anyone except my immediate family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, And then you said you had some friends you thought were close friends and they never really reached out to you. I definitely hear that a lot. The people that we sort of expect to continue to show up might completely disappear for reasons we don't know and we may not know for years. But this idea of this incompletion, it's like there are all these fragments of our former life out there somewhere still, and we don't really know if they'll ever get complete or if we're going to find the end of that fragment one day and find the rest of the story. And so in the meantime, we have to live in this state of release. Really, we've released so much physical control. We've released a lot of relational control. And definitely with time and energy and our mental capacity, everything's that we used to take for granted is now really out of our control. And we have to stay in this, like I said, uncomfortable state earlier, but incomplete, uncomfortable state. But learn to be okay in that state because it's not something that will really get resolved. What tools have you found along the way to help you be okay and to live well in that state?
Well, something you said just reminded me of a couple things. One is I did have one friend tell me that she actually just wasn't sure if she would be bothering me. And so once I told her, you're never bothering a friend when you text or call or reach out, you're never bothering a friend by asking, are you okay today? Or how are you feeling today? If they're not feeling well, they will not respond. And you need to be okay with that. But I also told people my ringer is always off if I'm asleep. So do not feel like you're going to wake me with a text or a phone call because my ringer is always off if I'm resting. So I think maybe people feel a little uncomfortable and they're not really sure, do I do this? Do I do that? I don't want to bother them. And, maybe for some people they would like to be left alone. But for me, I did not want to be left alone. I wanted to know that people were thinking about me. And kind of on the other side of that same coin of that idea of uncomfortable, sometimes cancer makes people feel uncomfortable. And so the reaction is to maybe avoid it, not that it's contagious, but maybe seeing someone they love in pain or nauseous or weak or looking different because they've lost weight or they've lost some hair, that makes them feel really sad and powerless, and it's uncomfortable and they want to avoid that. So I guess the key to dealing with that is just to forgive everybody and to know that everybody deals with hard things differently. But it will also make me a better person anytime someone's having any kind of surgery, any kind of chemo. It doesn't have to be because of cancer, anything hard they're dealing with. I am much more likely to push past any discomfort I might have and reach out and ask how they're doing and offer to help. And even just bring a meal, whether they want it or not, because you know what? If they use it, they use it. If they don't, they can either freeze it or throw it away. But I'm going to try. Um, the other thing about the broken identity is I used to be a really on time kind of person. So I remember the few times in my life people tried to surprise me. They made sure everyone knew to be early because Kandy's going to be on time. And so that was hard because I'm not always on time now because I might be sick or tired or just not having a good day. And having to leave events early when I love to dance is crazy. But I have had to leave a wedding reception at 8 o'clock instead of midnight and very sad about it. But I have to listen to my body. And I had to be okay with even not going to some events. During COVID, I couldn't go to my nephew's future wife's bridal shower because I couldn't trust that my immune system during chemo would be able to handle being around people, even though it was outdoors. They were taking precautions. I didn't get to go to a bridal shower. And that's not like me. I used to be at every single thing. So I think I'm still working on that, learning to adjust that I put myself first and my healing, my body, listening to my body. If I'm tired, I was in Hawaii this past October for 5 days with 8 of my friends that I've known since 8th grade. And I had to leave the beach one day because I just got too tired. I had gone out in the ocean with a floaty and a bunch of them were out there. And then I realized I'm not going to make it back. I'm getting too tired. Beautiful as Hawaii is, I do not want to drown in this ocean. And so I had to go back and I called my husband as I'm walking back to the hotel. And I was almost crying because I was just so bummed that my body was just saying, you're tired, you're going to go to take a nap now. And I just didn't want to be in the hotel room at all while I was in Hawaii. I wanted to be outside, I wanted to be at the beach. But I listened to my body and I went and I took a nap. And about in an hour or so later, I was up and ready to go to dinner with everybody. But that's an adjustment when you're used to being everywhere on time, stay to the end, have a blast. And you have to listen to your body and say, nope, I'm tired, got to rest, or I can't go sometimes.
And these are also broken identity moments, right? It's not the person that you would choose to be. It's not the person you were or knew yourself as, but you have to become something different in order to take care of yourself physically. And then also creates these tiny little griefs, right? And I think when we think of grief and cancer, we might mostly think of big griefs like the loss of someone, but cancer creates 1,000 little tiny griefs, meaning like I didn't get to attend this event and I would have been there if there's anything in my control to be there, or I had to leave early, or I didn't get this moment that I was looking forward to. And all of these little griefs end up adding up in us, especially if we don't acknowledge them, if we don't recognize that they're attached to a former identity, they're attached to a former expectation for life and who we might have been and who we thought we would be. And so we have to process these little griefs and say, I'm sad. Like you said, I'm sad, but I know I did what was right in that moment. I'm sad I wasn't there, but I know I had to make this choice and reprioritize a little bit about who we are. Now our priority is more toward physical strength in order to be here long term, be healthy long term. And in the past, we didn't have to worry about that. It wasn't on our, top 10 thoughts of the day. And so, but all these little griefs add up. And if we don't acknowledge them, if we don't, again, look deeper at ourselves, like what is happening? What were our expectations that are now not there? Then we can become overwhelmed very easily with a bigger grief that's really made up of all these little ones.
Absolutely. I think it has been an adjustment to put myself first. It doesn't matter what else is happening. I have to listen to my body.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the feeling. There's a lot of moments where you're like, I can feel the tension inside of me grow, and I'm like, if I don't get out of here right now, I'm going to be in a cold sweat. And it doesn't always make sense, and I can explain why it's happening, but again, it's just listening to your body, making the right choice in the moment. These days, I have to tell my kids, like, even if we like go to the grocery store, the farmer's market, I'm like, if I say we have to go right now. Even if we leave the cart behind, if I say we are leaving, you don't ask questions, you don't push back, we just walk out the door. And that's hard for me to say, because especially when you have teenage kids, they have a million questions like why would we do this? Why would it seems easy for them, but in the moment, I just can't. And yeah, and it's this constant awareness that there might be a moment where I can't, and I just need to leave right away. Um, and it changes the expectations for our kids, our families, our rhythms in our home. All of these things are tiny little griefs that we have to acknowledge and learn to release so that they don't just fill us up with an overwhelming sense of incompletion, really.
Right. And what you said, you have to speak up and maybe prepare people ahead of time, especially with kids, letting them know, hey, I might not be able to make it. I remember walking around Santa Cruz, and one of my sons stayed by me the whole time. Everybody else was about 50 feet ahead of us because I was just walking really slowly because my body was still healing from a surgery and my hips were hurting. And it's sort of like I look fine, so I must be fine. And I think it's good to remember to give people a warning if you're going out, if there's a possibility you might not be as up to par as they expect, to kind of warn them, like you said, I might just leave this cart in the middle of the grocery store and we may have to go home, just so you know. So then at least they say, oh, okay, so this is it. You warned us this is going to happen. And you may not even be able to predict that. But I just, when you were talking, I had a moment, and it was such a loving moment with me and my one son, who had his arm around me and was walking slow as he could with me as everybody else was way ahead of us.
And there are beautiful moments there, right? So we've talked a little about the incompletions and the grief and the broken identity, but there's good in the cancer experience.
Yeah.
There's so much beauty and opportunity for relationships to grow deeper. So if you had to say, would you say that there's a gift in the cancer experience?
There are many gifts, including learning to slow down and be present and appreciate the here and now. I think the most powerful gift that I have received, that I can continue to receive, is understanding I have more power over my own healing than I ever thought possible. And that all healing involves, at some level, self healing. Yes, doctors, surgeons, oncologists, naturopathic doctors. They are all very much essential and needed, but we are active participants in the process of our healing, whether we realize it or not, because we're not disconnected. Our mind, our body, our soul, our spirit, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, it's all connected. And I think that's a huge gift that I'm still really working on accepting and receiving that gift and knowing I have the power to participate in this healing. And so every day I'm grateful for my healing. And every day, what am I doing for my healing? Am I eating right? Am I exercising? Am I taking time to journal? Am I going to get a massage, do some self healing? Every day, I am a participant in this amazing body that has tolerated so much and recovered from so much and is still recovering, that it's the least I can do to give back and to know that I'm a part of this.
Yeah, and this is a mystery, right? We know some things about our body because science is trying to break it down and look at our cells and our molecules and all these things, but there's so much we don't know. And it's hard to put all the pieces together and see us as a whole being, right? You're talking about emotions and soul and all of these things, and they do have a direct response. Typically, we only see the negative, right? There's studies that show that trauma and stress and anxiety lead to negative health outcomes. We know being overworked leads to heart attacks and obesity and all these things. We rarely stop to think about what is the positive end of that? What is the other end of that spectrum? What peace and forgiveness and love, what does that lead our bodies to do? But if we can acknowledge the negative health outcomes, then we must also logically acknowledge there are positive health outcomes. And though they might be very difficult to study or very difficult to articulate or put into scientific terms, if the negative exists, the positive must also. And so, this is what adventure therapy is about. We're trying to talk about the emotional health of people with cancer, because it's just not been talked about. And we haven't acknowledged the good side. We haven't acknowledged that if we give people the right tools, they could heal faster, like you said. And that is my personal goal, is to shorten the time it takes someone to heal from cancer, emotionally and physically. I think we could cut that time frame down by almost half if we just recognize the power that's present in the emotional health and the power that's present in emotional healing, and just acknowledging it exists, acknowledging that these are things we're all dealing with, so we don't have to live in a compounding shame or compounding fear. If we can just acknowledge this exists, that just wipes away so much of the fear that I'm the only one struggling, that I'm the only one who's not strong enough. And then we can just get to the root cause, that there's so much grief and there's so much loss of identity and purpose and intention. Not that it can't be reclaimed, but it has to be grieved on the front end in order for it to be reclaimed after your cancer experience or through your cancer experience. And but I do honestly, in my heart of hearts, know that the more we talk about this, the more we acknowledge it, people will start to understand that it exists, that there's positive forces here that we haven't even tapped into, through our emotional healing for our bodies. And I know I hear you, and you really have embraced this, which I thought would make you a great conversation here on the podcast. But I just hope that other people can also hear this. And even if it's just the first time you thought of it, just start to think about what we can do, what you can do to create a healthy space in your brain so that your body can also find health and wellness as well.
Yeah, I'd like to add that it's not having a positive attitude. It's not that toxic positivity. It's actually acknowledging fear and isolation and broken identity and all of these things, and acknowledging, even if one little thing bothers you, speaking out, expressing yourself. Don't repress emotions, because when we repress our emotions, we repress our immune system. And we need our immune system firing on all cylinders. I need all of my white blood cells to be good little soldiers looking for abnormal cells all day, every day. They can't be putting out little fires everywhere. So I have learned, because I used to just choose my battles, because I'm just pretty, I think it takes a lot to upset me because I'm very analytical. So I'll think things through before I express how I feel about something. And then maybe a couple days later, I'll say, yeah, that really upset me. But now, as soon as I feel it, I say it. All right, I'm trying to. This is a work in progress, but I'm trying to say, even if there are dishes in the sink or there's, someone forgot to do something they were supposed to do, I'm just trying to not choose my battles, listen to my emotions. And that doesn't mean be upset about everything. It just means don't repress anything important. If you really are unhappy about something, let someone know. So I think that's important and powerful too. And I've read that a lot of cancer patients are just really, really nice people. Like there's almost a personality type. And I really want to keep my white blood cells functioning at their highest level of performance. So I've embraced this idea that I need to not repress anything, just let things out.
Yeah, and I think what you said is right. We're not talking about having to force yourself to be happy all the time. That's not the goal. The goal is healing, true peace, true peace of mind where your mind's not racing, you're not living in fear, this culture of fear in your brain where everything triggers something painful, but instead just processing, grieving, being honest with yourself and others, and so that you can have more true peace in your life, and that leads to positive things like happiness and joy and things of that nature. So yeah, I agree. um I'm not faker. I think that I've walked through a lot of steps trying to find emotional healing for myself. This is a lifelong thing I will carry, and I have to find the tools to carry that. So I'm not faking joy, I'm not faking happiness. I have bad days for sure. And but there's this constant goal to always working to better myself, better my mental thoughts, better my emotional intentions, and just always moving forward. Emotions aren't meant to be held on forever, and we're not ever meant to sit in the same place forever. Seasons change, and we grow, and we age, and there's things are always changing. And I think that sometimes cancer makes us feel like we have to sit in one little spot until it's all done, or sit and not change our expectations or what we're doing until the cancer has been resolved. And that's just not realistic. These days, cancer treatments last years. Even if they say it's a year, it's probably going to be at least two. And many of us are learning to live with cancer. And living with cancer means living, like actually continuing in life. And in order to do that, we have to have forward movement in our mental state, our new expectations, our identity. And so not cancer is no longer a place where we sit still and let doctors fix us. And I think Kandy definitely brought this up. Like cancer is a place where we learn and we continue to grow. And we might grow differently on a different path than we were before, but we continue to grow and we continue to live. And this is the key, right? This is the key to healing. This is the key to living with cancer.
I agree. I think one of the key words in all of that too is the hope we have for growth, and that we will be okay. Even if everything's not okay, we can still be okay.
Absolutely. And I say it can be irrational. Your hope can completely be irrational at the beginning. You don't have to have any facts or knowledge to say this hope's going to actually happen. That is the whole point of hope, is that you pick something that you don't know how it's going to exist, but you're going to move toward it. And at the beginning, you can be irrationally optimistic. Over time, you might find that that wasn't that far-fetched, right? But at the beginning, choose the farthest fetched, most optimistic plot in your vision and start moving toward that, because you'll never know unless you're moving. If you sit still and always dream of this future thing but never work toward it, then it will always be in the far distance, and you'll never know if it was possible. But hope can be irrational. Like that is sort of the point, that if it wasn't irrational, if you could achieve it tomorrow, then it wouldn't be hope. It would just be a plan, right? And so hope can be this thing that you're working toward that you don't know if you're going to get there or not, but you're working towards something positive. And I think that that's what makes hope living. That's what makes hope so powerful, is that we're almost on an adventure. Like you're on a path and you don't know where you're going to land. You don't know how you're going to get there. It's all an experience. The path is the experience. And so hope is also that way. You don't know how you're going to get there. You don't know what you'll find along the way, but the path, the journey, you're making it as you move forward. And that is what makes it so fun, so exciting, what lights your brain up and all your neurons are firing, because you're hopeful, you're thinking toward positive outcomes rather than negative outcomes like fear. You're just like, fear is the opposite of hope. You're moving toward negative outcomes, and your brain is trying to figure out how to prevent negative outcomes, but you're always focusing on the negative. Whereas hope's the opposite. You're focusing on what could be good in your life, and your brain is always working toward that. And that is what's beautiful and exciting about hope.
And that's what's beautiful and exciting about your podcast and your foundation, because you bring a lot of hope to a lot of people. The impact is huge.
Well, thank you so much. And Kandy, thank you so much for sharing your story today, where I know that many people will be encouraged. And if this conversation has been meaningful to you, please check out our other episodes and dig a little deeper by checking out the resources available at adventuretherapyfoundation.org. We are hopeful that today you are going to find something beautiful in your future, in your mind. You can visualize it and you can move toward that. And we hope that we can be a part of you healing from the experience of cancer.